Hey, what's going on all my fellow godlies and Warframe enthusiasts around the world? This is Vance from the Warframe God Build series, and today I wanted to talk about this video that I watched earlier. It's called Warframe, Is It Time to Heal His Pain? D's Taking Ideas and Feedback. It's uploaded by the D Siege, and I hope that I'm not pronouncing that wrong. He does tend to introduce himself as Siege, so I'm going to address him as such furthermore. Now, this topic is a little wonky because it goes from Stalker to Umbra to Digital Extremes, not including the Umbra passive for farming capabilities and giving them to other Warframes. And let me just go out on a limb here and jump to essentially the conclusion of this video. This guy wants the ability for your Warframe to run around and fight alongside you at the same time as you're piloting your operator. And I'm gonna disagree with that hard. I'm gonna give that a hard no. And the reason why I'm gonna do that is because we need something specific that makes Umbra Umbra. And that's his thing. That's nobody else's, that's his thing. And there's another thing I disagree with him heavily upon. He doesn't prefer Excalibur. Cool. That makes it for people like myself who favor Excalibur over any other frame in the entire game. That makes it easier for me to feel like I have a position in which I shine, and I shine brilliantly. I confidently take my Excalibur Umbra into ongoing arbitrations and stay for long periods of time. Arbitrations and Eidolon hunting is essentially the whole reason why I'm even still playing the game and having fun with it. But I recently went back to the drawing board with how to have fun with Warframe. And I mean, let's let the cat out of the bag and tell all the people who didn't already know that you've got near 40 Warframes, right? And you only have access to about half that amount in loadouts. So I think everyone's got their favorite Warframe. Like the Warframe they just never get tired of. They fall back on that whenever the flavor of the month is over with. And this is pretty comparable to like favorite songs. Everyone says that they can't really choose a favorite because at any one point in time they're always listening to something different. Well, that specifically is called the flavor of the month. And Gauss is the flavor of the month right now. I mean, he's new. Everybody's playing him. So that's what humans tend to do, is you get a new thing, and then this magical concept called the new car smell. Once that wears off, it's back to the shelf to collect dust. And Warframes are like that. So what I've done to try and counter this whole vicious cycle of Warframes getting new life breathed into them courtesy of my Reforged videos and then falling back into obscurity is I've tried to include all of the specters in on this action. And by that I mean I have a bunch of Warframes in my loadouts, and these are my go-to Warframes for different tasks. I use Gauss for hunting Prophet Taker, I use Rhino for hunting Eidolon, I use Excalibur Umbra specifically for arbitrations. I use Zephyr for traveling any amount of different distances in the plains of Eidolon or the Orb Valis. Just various Warframes are used for various different things. Obviously Saren for high-level Sanctuary Onslaught. And the list just goes on and on. Now, what I've begun to do with Warframes, especially when it comes to a loadout, is try to include it in a way that complements my play style with specters. So for instance, I think it's my Vapor Specter. It's essentially the weakest specter, the one that you get the most blueprints of. I totally use her like the Warframe God builds Wisp loadout. I totally use that as my Vapor Specter. And the reason why I'm doing that is because her first ability is just so goddamn useful, and the Spectre tends to just put it down randomly. And if I see, I can see those abilities on the minimap, so I mean I can run up there and I can essentially play Wisp while also playing another Warframe. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I feel like getting an Umbra upgrade to let your Warframes run around with you isn't even necessary at all. What is necessary, however, is the Spectre system, because maybe you guys weren't around for this, or those of you who were around for it just forgot all about it, but there's a little special area in your Orkin labs in the clan dojo to which you can build Spectre army regiments. And I'm not necessarily sure what can be done with that, but I think that Siege is onto something great here. I think that, you know, his idea is not the best in the world, and you can tell it's something he just put a little amount of thought into. But if you put a high amount of thought into the whole Spectre system, I think we might have our answer. For a long time, Spectres have just gone untouched, and they primarily operate around the old school T1, T2, T3, and T4 system, in which you have your T1 being the weakest and T4 being the strongest. T1 I believe is the Vapor, while T4 is the Cosmic, and there's just not a whole lot of differences between. Everything else in the game has been updated except for the Spectres, and at some point all of these Spectres are gonna die. And what I would like to see personally is for, instead of this Umbra upgrade to drop, maybe just drop Spectres. Yeah, just drop Spectre parts. That way, whenever you go into the Orkin lab, you can maybe just buy armies outright, as long as you've got the resources and the parts that drop from the disruption missions. I don't know, but I mean, it's an idea. It's something to go off of that I feel is monumentally better than what Siege is suggesting, because I never want to see anything that has to do with Umbra being transferred to other Warframes. However, if you did make Spectres out of those Warframes, it would be just as good, because then you could play your Warframe and also be joined by technically another one of your Warframes. And one minute detail that I want to include with this suggestion is the fact that Spectres need customization. So here's my very rough draft suggestion. What if you made the first tier Spectre only be revive capable? Like, he just sits in the backdrop, or he's just not even there at all. He or she would only jump in and cast the most useful ability for that situation to try and revive you, kind of like a guardian angel, so to speak. And they could fail to do so. It's highly probable that they might not be able to revive you. They might get killed before doing so. But it is a second chance for solo players, because usually solo players just drop and you have no option but to revive. So if you bring a Vapor Spectre, perhaps you'd be more incentivized to make your Vapor Spectre a tank like Warframe, say Nidus or Naros, Hildren, someone who can absorb damage and face tank long enough to get you up. So, I mean, obviously throwing down a Vapor Spectre at that point would be just something proactive to prevent yourself from being one-shotted, or to give yourself a second chance. That way, whenever you do get revived by the Vapor, you're more inclined to throw out another Vapor Spectre just in case. And then the second tier of Spectre could be someone who sticks around with you and fights like the normal Spectres do. but you know, again, at some point they're gonna die. And then the third specter is no different than that, except it's customizable as far as appearance goes. So this specter can be completely customized, and whatever loadout you're using, it'll carry over the appearances and attachments and everything. I feel like that would be great. I feel like that would be amazing. Can you imagine? I can imagine already 4 Wukongs running around. Like, if you're playing as Wukong and you also have a Spectre Wukong, and then they both do their abilities, it's like you're quadruple Wukong. Especially if you use like a Cosmic Spectre, which is something I want to talk about a lot. So your third Spectre would have the appearances and be no different than, you know, the second Spectre. But where the Cosmic differs is, like Excalibur Umbra, it can't be killed. It can be just kind of immobilized, which would require you to jump into your Tenno and then, I don't know, either Void Blast him to jumpstart him back into operation, or Void Dash, use whatever powers to, you know, bring him back to life. Maybe even just be someone who needs to be revived. That would be incredible. If the Cosmic Spectre, once it reached its end of its life bar, you could literally see him downed. It would say Cosmic Spectre downed, and then your friends could revive them, or you could revive them, however you want to look at this situation. But it would also carry over your appearances stuff too. So, I mean, I'm just kind of layering this in motivations for why you would go up in tiers of specters, and why you would want to build armies in the Orkin Lab. I'm trying to just take systems that haven't been touched in years, dust them off, and put them back into the game as a way to incentivize players to care more about their companion army. Because, I mean, I don't know if anybody else does it, but I tend to, especially when I'm bored, just throw out a shit ton of specters. I mean, I have a lot of them. At any one point in time, I can throw out a Moa, an Ancient, a Shield Osprey, a Roller, an Infested, a Corrupted Lancer. I can obviously throw out Clem, and then one of my specters. So I would like to see it so where we could have essentially all of our specters out at once, because if you have a Vapor out and then you decide to throw a Cosmic, the Vapor just automatically dies, and I always thought that was really freaking dumb. So that's my suggestion. I would call this video part 2 of Is It Time to Heal His Pain, because I do want to talk about the Stalker, because I share that opinion that he just kind of hasn't been relevant since the second Dream, and I would like to see some story aspects be brought back into that. I mean, shit, we were told before Umbra came out that Stalker is an Umbra. So if you could kind of connect those stories and unify the similarities between Umbras and Specters through the Stalker, I think that you would have a much better story to deal with. Like, I think that Siege is on to a really good idea. I'm not trying to shit all over everything that he said by disagreeing with him so intently, but I want to bridge the gap between his idea and my idea. And I think that the best way to do that is through his points with the Stalker. I think it is high time that the Stalker become an ally. And I think that a quest that kind of emulates him coming over to our side could provide, you know, a much more meaningful connection to our Specters. So let's just say the Stalker was a Warframe who was on autopilot by another Tenno who went insane. We discovered that Tenno in the lore, and we helped him or her, and then they let go of their connection with the Stalker, let us have the Stalker, and then we chose to use the Stalker as a companion to be kind of a sidekick to our Warframes. And this is just such a rough draft idea. It can be thrown out if you don't like it, but I mean, it's something to it's food for thought, essentially. It's just a recommendation to get the cogs turning in DE's heads, because I feel like Siege is definitely on to something with bringing the Stalker in on this, and I do feel like something should be done with the Specters, something that is very Umbra passive-like. So there's quite a few connections that can be drawn there to kind of help this game flourish, especially with replayability. I think that the only reason why people are complaining about a content drought at this point is because, yeah, sure, you've got things that are replayable, quests and missions and stuff, but I mean, there's nothing that we feel like we want to do over and over again. We get the rewards and whatnot, and then that's it. We stop playing. So, you know, that's another topic for another time. I'd love to hear your thoughts, honestly, because I feel like there's a lot of exciting stuff in the works. I feel like we saw a lot of stuff at TennoCon that has personally got me pumped, and if we saw an update for the Specters that included Stalker involvement, that would be a definite plus going into the new war. Feeling like, you know, I want this to actually be a war. So many popular forms of media advertise war in their title. Let's look at the prime candidate of this here. Captain America Civil War. If we analyze that movie, as good as it was, it really wasn't a civil war at all. It was more like a civil battle. That's it. It pales in comparison to what it was in the comics, so I want this to feel like it's a massive all-out scale war. And how are you going to have a war if all it centers around is one character, and that's us. That's our Tenno piloting the Warframe. So again, Siege had a great idea. Let's open up the possibilities of Specters and make it so the Tenno is just so goddamn powerful at this point. It's like a demigod. Like, its existence commands hundreds and thousands of NPCs, and when I say NPCs, I really mean NPCs, like just companions that come out of the woodwork. Let's say the syndicates get involved in on this shit. I mean, we need everybody. We need all hands on deck to fight the sentients. Not really, because I mean, we can pretty much slaughter them as is. But I mean, from a storyline perspective, if you're gonna do a cinematic quest, I think it'd make a lot more sense if you bring an actual war to this scenario. Like, think about it, man. Like, everyone we've helped out in the little past, whether it was Little Duck, Rail was his name, Rail, Clem, even Alan V, maybe Alan V's helped us before. So, you know, some of the Dax, Ballas kind of like was totally against us and then helped us by giving the paracesis to us. So maybe Ballas is going to end up being on Lotus's side. You've got a lot of players on the board, and it would be completely asinine to not use Specters going into the new war. I feel like that's a must, because it's a system that just hasn't been touched for years. I think it's essentially the only system in Warframe right now that hasn't been revisited at some point, because everything else has been, I mean, raids had a less long lifespan than Specters. So it's high time, man. We need customization for our Specters, that's the thing. Because we've got customization for everything else, and I feel like putting a story behind giving us customization is definitely the way to go. But like I said, sound off in the comment section. Let me know what you think about it, and if there's a high demand for any other videos related to this, then I'll definitely talk about it. So, this has been Vance. Until next time, I'm signing out. Peace.